Well, good morning, Buff Nation, and welcome to this special edition of our Coaches Zoom. It's actually going to be an administrator Zoom today, as we are joined by our Director of Athletics here at West Texas A&M, Michael McBroom. Michael joined the WT athletic staff as an Associate Athletic Director and Executive Director of the Buffalo Club back in 2000, and he assumed the duties as the department's Athletic Director in 2006. Over the past 14 years, with all the improvements during his tenure on the field, as well as facilities and in the classroom, it's probably safe to say that this past month, as well as the months that lay ahead, have been unlike any that he could have imagined he'd be dealing with. Good morning, Michael. Welcome to our Zoom forum today.
Thank you, Kent. Good morning to everybody. It's, as I said, really, really great to see your faces again. We have, excuse me, I might get a little emotional. It's amazing how much we have missed seeing fans at games and our athletes on campus. But today I can tell you there's light at the end of the tunnel, thank goodness. I think, did I just see Pat O'Brien on here? Anybody see Pat? I thought I saw his face. But anyway, it's really good to see.
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, Pat. Hey, Dr. O'Brien. How are you? It has been, as Kent said, quite a time here for the last 6 weeks with losing the seasons in basketball, the postseason for basketball, and all the spring sports, and then the transition, trying to figure out what the path is going to be for us going forward. I'll tell you that there's a great administrative team here at WT that has been working day and night to, one, increase enrollment, make sure that WT stays as strong as ever and grows through this. And Dr. Windler's done a great job in keeping everybody focused on those tasks. Our objective in athletics is to take this opportunity and even though we're not competing, to figure out ways that we can come back stronger and better next year. I want to, there have been some activity on campus. Campus is not closed. We still have residents here and we still have student athletes around Canyon. And ever since spring break up until I believe it was Thursday was the last day of voluntary before the week to prepare for finals. But we still had up to 150 athletes around doing voluntary workouts on campus. Our sports medicine team, led by Luke Casper, and athletic performance by Sarah Ramey and their whole crew, we've been doing symptom checks for athletes. They've been doing conditioning workouts, practicing social distancing outdoors on the fields while our indoor facilities are closed. And if nothing else, just to keep some semblance of a routine and some exercise as they've been focused on their studies. So finals are underway, I believe, tomorrow. And so we will anxiously await the grades that our teams will put forth here. We'll get those here in a couple of weeks. But the real thing that we're all working on as a staff is preparing to reopen in the fall. I think you've seen the headlines this week. There's starting to be a little groundswell that colleges will reopen, athletics will resume, and that's where our minds have been for this 6 weeks. So I think that we don't know all the details yet, but we intend to open campus. We intend to have our athletes back and reporting in July, some of them for summer too, to begin voluntary workouts in our facilities, and then we'll start practices, practices for the fall in August, and then classes resume normal. Residence halls will open, and we will get after it, and then welcome you all back to campus as well.
Michael, I know as we gear up towards the fall seasons, our volleyball, cross country, football teams, soccer teams have current schedules, but there's a lot of unknown regarding schools in the other states, California, New Mexico, about what may or may not happen. What can you tell us regarding that?
Well, that's actually where I'm spending about 90% of my time right now. There are some, it is going to be a very weird year in terms of which institutions are able to play, which schools will welcome institutions from certain areas back, the whole travel aspect. There are lots of moving parts, and there are There's some proposals on the table that will allow schools to play, if they choose, a fewer number of competitions and still qualify for NCAA championship selection. And I favor we keep the maximum number out there so that we have as broad a window as possible to accommodate all the challenges that we will have with schedules. We do have schedules set, as you alluded to, Kent, but those they may be fluid, and we're talking almost daily with other ADs, conference across the country with ADs, just to get a sense of what changes we may be faced with on the scheduling front.
This late in the game, it's always fun having to juggle schedules, because normally your coaches are lining up their travel already, but there's a lot of up in the air, and it seems like the landscape changes on a daily basis.
It's changed. Yes, that's fair. It's changed on an hourly basis, quite frankly. There's a proposal that came out here in the last 24 hours that I'm adamantly opposed to, and so I'm trying to work some political angles to free up that maximum side. I don't think we should be limiting at all. I think we should be as flexible as possible to allow all the institutions to deal with the issues they're dealing with as much freedom as possible. I think that's one thing also that's great about Division II. We're different than Division I. We have a regional philosophy, and in times like this, I think it's important that we embrace our Division II regional philosophy and allow us as institutions and conferences to deal with these scheduling challenges and other things that we face here as a group, and instead of a national mandate. So that's the scheduling side is what I'm spending a lot of time on currently. Last week it was safety and testing, and next week we'll go back to that. We have a task force here on campus that's charged with establishing some practices as we bring all of our students back to campus. And test symptom checks and things like that. So but right now, Kent, you're right. It's scheduling, and it's scary.
All right, Buff Nation, you have an opportunity to ask Michael questions. Let's use the football rules. If you got a question, raise your hand, signal for a fair catch. You can also go over on the side to the chat if you'd rather type your question, then I can read it to Michael. But let's open up the forum to anybody that might have a question. Who's out there and willing to step up and go first? There we go. Terry Duffy, you're on.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm doing well, Terry. How's Chicago?
We finally got sunshine and about 65 degrees today, which is very pleasant. It's been awful cold and wet as normal up here, but yeah, I think we're over the hump. So hopefully we are flattening the curve in Chicago, and we're flattening the curve on the weather also. So it's not like Texas, but it'll be nice. So, hey, question I got, when you talked about all the planning of everything, how about, is this a regional thing more with the NCAA, or are they doing like a one-size-fits-all, or do you have some flexibility since the majority of the schedule is played, in the state of Texas, actually, as opposed to a couple of games like the one up in Vancouver and, at the border? It could be a whole nother issue, but a regional type of a thing around Texas where you might be able to get a lot of the scheduling because most of the events are there.
Well, one of the proposal that I'm dealing with the last couple of days is it's a national mandate to reduce maximum number of competitions. And I think that to your point, it is we are regional, and we should I think have the flexibility to adjust our schedules regionally and keep the broadest window possible. So the proposal that we're looking at that I don't like is a national mandate to reduce, and I would prefer we have the freedom to deal with that as conferences and institutions. For example, if our budget wouldn't allow us to fly out to Azusa Pacific for our first football game, I would rather have the freedom to make that decision instead of we do have the money and we'd love to go, but the NCAA says we can't go. And I want the freedom for institutions to make those decisions.
All right, who has a question for Michael? Just raise your hand and we'll come to you. There we go.
Actually, David, not Michelle.
You got it, David.
I haven't been keeping track of what I know the population density in the Panhandle is fairly small. What is how many people have been affected by this virus? The density, since it's not a very big density, it didn't seem like there'd be very many casualties.
I haven't looked at it in the last 24, 48 hours. Is there somebody else on the call that has up-to-date numbers that could answer that question?
I know when I went to school there, it was very easy to keep 6 feet in between students.
Well, from that standpoint, it certainly is. I think we have, somebody did tell me, I think we have 1,300 square feet per person in the Texas Panhandle. So the 6 feet issue is not a problem.
Oh, okay.
Michael, I know one of the concerns, and it's probably one of the questions that doesn't have an answer right now. We talk about social distancing. How might that affect hosting events?
Well, we're running several different under several different assumptions right now. If the Governor Abbott's directive on movie theaters and like churches was the other one, public gatherings, they're running right now the recommendation is every other row and keep 6 feet between families on those rows. We have models that we're putting out with our ticket packages. If we're at 25% capacity, what will that look like? If we're at 50%, or if we're able to do 100, what does that look like? And so that's one of those that we have plans for any scenario, but our hope is that we'll be able to open up. And at the end of the day, attending an athletic event is a choice. And if people feel safe to come to a football game, then I think they should be able to come to the football game, as long as we're providing the protocols that will allow them to maintain social distance. So it's a work in progress. Like I said, we have models, but we'll see thankfully we're still 4 months away from opening.
And it appears that as of yesterday, Randall County showing 171 active cases. Last I saw in Canyon, we were between 7 and 10. I got a question here, Michael, from Lucas Kinsey. He says, football, volleyball, soccer, and cross country will be the first sports to fire up in the fall. Do you think that the rules for practice time will change in order to try and accelerate the athletes to get ready for their competition?
I do expect there'll be some flexibility in start dates depending on regional situations. But it's been, I think, 24 days for football to report. But short answer to your question is I think there'll be some flexibility based on some missed time in the spring, applying that to your fall practice, preseason practice. We'll just have to see how that all shakes out here through the NCAA over the next 30 days or so. I will say this, one thing I will say, the positive aspect of the things that we're dealing with, the NCAA has been very, very responsive to, making sure that student athletes on the academic side and the extra seasons, they're meeting frequently and making decisions frequently in those types of areas that benefit student athletes. And for that, I'm really thankful. Some of that stuff can get really bogged down.
And one hot topic in the media is the possibility of returning a year for seniors of the spring sports. Where is Division II or the Lone Star Conference or West Texas A&M on that?
Well, those athletes that were impacted for us, track and field, golf, baseball, and softball, were all given an extra year of eligibility. And at WT, we are welcoming them back. They'll have their scholarship, and those rosters will be bigger. But we're thrilled to be able to allow them, if they choose, to play another year. So we've given it. They have the option to return or not, and the coaches are working through that with those rosters. But they are welcome back at WT for sure.
I know that's going to be a monetary challenge, so it's time for Buff Nation to step forward.
Well, yeah, it's, those are easy decisions for me. You're talking about, a student being able to either finish their undergraduate career or start their graduate degree with a scholarship help. And that's where, I think we are more fortunate than other programs. The fact that we do have the Buffalo Club, behind our student athletes and teams, and the dollars that are given help support scholarships and enable us to do things a little extra than other programs. And so like these, we call them 6th-year seniors, we'll be able to handle that. And but as I look at this screen and see all these great faces, I have to say, thank you for our ability to be able to do that for these kids.
I know we have read, it seems like weekly, about schools that are trimming sports because of the financial impact that COVID-19's put on them. It's always tenuous, but it's got to feel good knowing that BuffNation and WT Athletics isn't to that point.
Yeah, I think again, that's a tribute to being a WT, but also I think it's the mindset of what the leadership at this university has been since I've been here, and it's always it may be easier to retreat and show a sign of weakness to do that, but with Dr. O'Brien and Dr. Windler, it's always let's shift into a different gear. And let's take advantage and figure out where we can excel. We may have to cut some things, but there'll be things that maybe people won't see we cut in order for us to put more resources into things where we're most successful. And I think that's a tribute to the leadership we've had. And this is another one of those opportunities. This is certainly going to be a budget challenge, but I expect that athletics and the university will come out of this in much better shape and position than we were before. And I think it's because we have a focus on how do we get better and not make excuses and cut things that, we're not going to cut support to students. That's just, if I'm here, we're not cutting support to students. End of story.
John Pipkin has a question for you, Michael. This is one that we've kind of addressed with our various coaches Zooms, and he's asking what methods are being used with our various athletic programs to keep our current student athletes, whether they're at home or on campus, able to undergo training programs while this pandemic and the shelter in place is taking place.
Yeah, it's kind of for those that are here, they have the opportunity to come in and work, outfield on the conditioning side and work on the fields in small groups. I think those groups are fewer than 10 and doing those workouts here on campus. For the others that went home, and it's much like a summer, they get their off-season conditioning workouts from our athletic performance staff, and they do those workouts on their own at their home or in their communities, and it's just kind of like an extended summer for us. They get their workouts developed and sent to them, and they do them on their own.
And one of our former student athletes, Daniel Zude, just wants to know if you've had conversation with our SAC and what they're thinking and how they're feeling about this.
Feeling about what specifically?
Daniel, go ahead. You can ask your question.
Let me unmute myself. I'm just curious how your conversations have gone with SAC and just, what those conversations look like.
I have not had any conversations with our SAC team since campus left. They are about to get some information on what return to play will look like and things like that. Now, Kimberly Dudley, who's our SAC coordinator, our leadership and development director, she's the one that remains in contact with a lot of those student athletes on a regular basis. But they're about to get some information on proposals on reduction in competition and things like that. That's one of the things that disturbs me about this discussion about reducing competition. We seem to get student athlete input on the things when it's convenient, but the things that they may not like, we tend to avoid those a little bit. But I intend to ask our student athletes what they feel like about having the possibility of a season reduced or mandated. I would ask you as a former track athlete, the proposal is a 33% reduction in track and field competition dates. And you already lost your season this past year. How does that sound to you?
I am going to hand that question to Kirsten over here, who's also a former track and field student athlete.
You guys don't want to touch that one, do you?
All right, go ahead.
I'll answer. I mean, from my vantage point, I remember there was a couple of seasons where I ran, 20 or 25 quarters in one season, and I didn't feel great by the time June hit. So a 30% reduction seems extreme, but a reduction I don't think would be detrimental.
Thank you.
All right, who has a question? Terry Duffy.
Jump in there. Hate to jump in a second time, Mike, but everybody's focused obviously on the regional aspect of the university and what happens. What coordination or discussion has gone on maybe between the state of Texas, with the region, the Panhandle high schools and the programs, and we know so many of the other programs come in and whether play at the stadium or have playoff games, and there's a lot of impacts that goes outside the borders of Canyon. So we're just interested what coordination's going on with the other educational systems.
So in the Lone Star Conference, the athletic directors are meeting every single week, and one of the topics is what are your institutional plans? And as of this week, I think it's safe to say that every institution inside the Lone Star Conference plans to open up in the fall and resume face-to-face instruction. From the high school standpoint, that's all coordinated through the UIL, certainly the governor's office with everybody is working together. Ours is coordinated from the university standpoint through the Texas A&M University system, who's, I'm certain, in daily contact with the governor's office and healthcare experts. There has been an inordinate amount of communication from Austin out to all of us, as well as from the CDC stuff that happens through government agencies gets passed down through the system. But from the athletic standpoint, UIL will dictate what will happen with high school sports, and the word that I'm getting is it will be full steam ahead in Texas. I'm also this week, New Mexico, I believe, is full steam ahead. No public announcement on that yet, either of those, but I think that's the word and the expectation.
John Teeters, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Johnny.
Hey, Michael, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm hanging in there. I was curious. Let's say, for instance, if softball had two seniors that decided to come back next year for their last year of competition, will their scholarship money be counted against the total for the team, or is there a waiver for scholarship numbers if you had a senior that came back?
There's a waiver. Good question. There's a waiver for that. It would not count against the team total.
Okay, thanks. Just wondered.
You bet.
Okay, let's go to Lee Passmore. Go ahead, Lee.
Thanks for unmuting me, but you talked about how if there's a decision involving the travel to Azusa Pacific out to California for next year's football opener, how you would want to make the decision on the financial, how feasible that would be financially, instead of the NCAA. Do you anticipate, how much of a challenge do you anticipate with the budget this next year for you guys as far as being able to cover some things? And, as all the LS, is it pretty similar, you think, to what all the other LSC schools might be facing for 2020, 2021, you'd say?
No, I think we're going to be a little different. Again, I think that's a tribute to the leadership and the systems that we've built at WT. I do not, at this time, anticipate budget challenges that would negatively impact athletics. I expect our enrollment at the university to be equal or higher. I'll say higher. That's the president's goal, and so I hope that the enrollment is higher, and athletics is going to contribute to helping that. And if enrollment is the same or higher, then that will certainly help our budget. There will be budget cuts, but I think that we can manage that inside of athletics better than most. And there are some other schools in the conference that also minimal impact, probably state institutions, but a lot of it depends on enrollment at our peers. And I know that there are some schools that have already had budget reductions handed down to them that are somewhat significant. So it's just, we're a big conference and a lot of big different types of institutions. Some are going to fare better than others, and I would say the WT will fare better than most.
Okay, we got a question from Lucas Kinsey. Go ahead, Lucas.
Hey, Michael, I know this from getting to be around the different programs. I feel like we have the best D2 fan base in the country. They're very supportive of all of our programs. This is obviously going to be a challenging year. What do you need? What does the athletic department and the coaches and the programs need most from BuffNation this year, and what will be a challenging year?
Well, the biggest thing will be to be in the stands and cheer them on. Two is, the Buffalo Club is going to be critical this year. We have some scholarship needs that we are going into the biggest we've ever been in terms of the number of student athletes on our campus this fall, with the senior classes returning, with some of the additional costs that we are going to incur to keep the athletes safe with symptoms checks and different types of travel. Vans may be gone for us, and everybody may be on buses. That's going to be a bigger expense. So I know financially it's a challenge across the country right now, but I would say the two things that help us most are being in the stands, cheering on the coaches and the teams, and then any financial support that could be given to our Buffalo Club Fund is critical this year.
Okay, we've got a question from Gerald Welch. Michael, he's asking, most of the stuff we've talked about thus far has been short-term implications. Do you have any concern about long-term, second or third order issues? And if so, what might they be? Is that relative to athletics or the virus itself? I think from the athletic standpoint. Yeah, he's talking athletics, Michael.
Yeah, no, I think, the long-term view for athletics is we're going to be better than ever as we come out of this. I think, we'll remain focused on the task of figuring out each and every day how to be better than our competition. And I think as we go through this challenging time, our focus is pretty lasered in on that task. And so I don't see any challenges ahead of us. At this moment, I see lots and lots of opportunity, and I know that we have an administrative staff and a coaching staff committed to capitalizing on the opportunities that are going to be present for us as this thing plays out.
And another update, combined Potter and Randall County have 712 positive with 11 deaths to this point. And we all hope that target is starting to go down now. Questions for Michael McBroom? Just raise your hand or you can type it out in the group chat.
That was me.
Taking your questions on the phone. One more time around. We've
Kent,
the man with us.
Hey, Kent, it's Brad.
Yes.
I guess the question I have, do we all still have a job, Michael?
Yes, Brad. Yeah, especially you. The rest of us may not, but if we're able to roll the balls out this September, then you'll be behind the mic.
Okay. I wouldn't miss it for the world. Man, it's just great to see these faces on the Zoomcast here. It is. I've missed you all, and I know I speak for a lot of people. Man, we've missed just BuffNation as a collective when we aren't on a computer screen,
It is great to see everybody. Let me one of the things that has developed with the conference that we've been working on with the membership there is an expansion of the LSC digital network. So what you will see this coming year is all of the member schools will be a part of the network and broadcast every game from their home in volleyball, basketball, football, and most likely baseball and softball. There'll be a season pass and a day pass. This past year with us, what you paid for was to see the games at WT. That's what we were responsible for. And then you would, if any other schools were charging, you would go to their website and do that thing. So now this year, for one annual fee by sport, you'll be able to get every single game inside the conference, home or away. So you'll be able to see our teams with announcers and multiple camera options in basketball and all the volleyball games, and like I said, baseball, softball. So there's going to be great value for viewers. This has been a long time coming in getting the framework done. But I know that the membership is excited about it, and I'm excited about the value and the ability to watch multiple games across campus on the same day.
But as far as you know, there's no projected future expansion within the conference, right? Don't we have about all we can handle now?
I think we're good.
Okay, good.
Okay, questions for Michael McBroom. There we go. Stanley Schaefer. Stanley?
Michael,
Thanks.
are there any rules coming down as far as social distancing in the stands? We're all excited to get back, but we want to be in the stands too to watch the games.
Yeah, those will all be. Those are all kind of a wait and see right now. We have plans in place. We have guidelines. We're going to see how things shake out here over the next few months. Buffalo Stadium and the box, we may be limited to 25% capacity, but we could also be at 100% capacity and allow people in. We may allow people to sit in every other row, or limited number of people per section. We have all sorts of different things that we can do inside of our venues if social distancing is still mandated at that point.
Thank you.
John Teeters, go ahead.
Michael, with the loss of Tarleton, we've kind of got an odd man out situation now. Are there any other potential schools that have talked about becoming a Lone Star Conference member?
None that I'm aware of at the moment. If any of those conversations are happening, they're confidential or private conversations with the commissioner's office and the council of presidents. But I'm not aware of any right now. And if there were, I think it's probably taken a backseat to getting through this current situation.
Are there any schools that are maybe thinking about moving to a different conference?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I've not heard anything. No, we're not going to the SEC or Big 12.
Okay, Michael, we've got a question from our chat here. We've announced that summer camps have been canceled this year, but I know they are a big part of each program's budget and fundraising. What are some of the ideas to help recoup that lost revenue?
Well, first thing we'll do is look at the savings that we've had with that by not being able to complete the spring seasons and move some operational money into those camp buckets, and then see where we stand.
Okay, questions for Michael McBroom? I think everyone's gearing up for an exciting weekend of stay in shelter.
Michael, can you just talk about the experience that you had when everything from the NCAA was going down?
Oh, relative to basketball and everything else, yeah. So it's that was a week, to be sure. It was as part of the basketball committee first spending time to select the teams that would go into the Division II championship. That was a fun experience. But then, as that was an all-day Sunday, and then on Monday everything started to look a little shaky in terms of what that tournament would look like. And I think I may not be correct on days. The first wave, I think, came on Tuesday that would be played. That tournament would be played with no fans, or potential no fans. And then I think that next 48 hours, and Daniel and Kirsten could help me with some of this, but that time from Tuesday to Thursday, it was changing, and there were meetings happening in Indianapolis, and we were getting word. Kirsten was headed here to be our site rep for the men's tournament. And then, all of a sudden the word came down that that Wednesday night when the NBA player tested positive, I knew it was going to be an issue. And then when the decision was made, I think the next day or Friday, that all winter championships and spring winter championships were canceled, and then spring as well. It was a gut punch it was a tough week, Tyson, as you know. And then you're trying to navigate. What do we do to navigate? Kirsten was here, and I think was a part of one of our emergency staff meetings that came in, and but it was tough. It's a tough week.
Yeah, we had basketball regionals here. We had our Lady Buffs down in Lubbock. We had our track and field team, I believe, in Birmingham. So we were spread all about.
We were.
Okay, question for Michael McBroom. Marlene, do you have one there? She shakes her head no.
Hey, Kent, I've got a question.
Yeah, that's Tom Brown.
Hey.
Had his Zoom yesterday, and he wants another chance.
Yeah, let's do this every day. Say, just a question I know all coaches are probably thinking about, but if they do cut the playing season, let's just take volleyball, for example, and they have different contracts out with different teams coming in and they have to go places, how would you dictate which games you would play and which games you wouldn't play? I think that'd be really, really tough. We talked about it yesterday. I know, Michael, you've got thoughts on it, but how would they, I think that's a really tough situation. Any idea how they would work through that?
No, that's a question. It's a question I posed yesterday and again this morning. The complexities of what's being proposed are, it's going to create it's going to make a situation that's already difficult even that much more difficult. And I think you have contracts involved, travel contracts. You have, for example, we want to keep our game against Pueblo, but they don't want to play us. They want to keep their game against Rogers State, but Rogers State doesn't want to play Pueblo. They want to keep their game with, another. It's just the dominoes and the complexities. It's very detrimental to a league the size of ours as well. What the proposal on the table is, you cut baseball gets cut to 40 games. Well, our conference schedule is 48 games. So just inside our conference, how do you dictate which conference games you're going to cut, and then how do you dictate a conference champion? It's very complex, Tom, as you know, and there is no answer on how you would pick those games because it's different for every conference and every region.
That'd be the same for the NAIA as it would be for NCAA.
We're not a member. You may not know this, but we're not a member of the NAIA, and so I'm not familiar with the cuts that they're putting forward. But I'll see if I can get a seat on their board and figure out what they're doing.
Yeah, I just with playing an NAIA game and you have a contract with them, and the NCAA says, well, you have to get down to this many games, and now we have to back out of a contract. That could be a sticky situation. But I think you mentioned it yesterday, an act of God or something. You always get out of those contracts.
Yeah, but I don't know that this is an act of God. This is something that's being handed down that's unnecessary. And I actually think if they'll keep the maximum number, in the event. So let's say that we can't travel to Disney in your instance.
Right.
Your team is scheduled to go to Disney. Let's say we can't. The state says Texas institutions can't travel to California, just for example. Well, it'd be a lot easier for us to see if Wayland Baptist could play a basketball game, or another NAI in this region, so that we can still play those games. That's an easier solution, one that we can figure out on our own without having our options minimized or hands tied a little bit by this proposal.
Right. I know you're doing your
Because
best.
you have
Keep
a
working at it.
maximum number of
Hopefully-
games doesn't mean you have to play that maximum number of games, and we see that taking place right now.
Yeah, that's right, Ken. It's a permissive number, so you go up to that amount, and a lot of institutions don't go up to that amount. They make either a budget decision not to play that many, or a strategic decision based on who they already have on their schedule, or baseball and softball and soccer, they get games rained out. Weather takes away dates of competition. And so I favor, as I said, I favor just the broadest window possible to allow the membership to navigate through this time on scheduling.
Okay, Casey Lish, you had a question.
Yeah, Michael, throughout this whole time, I've had quite a few questions coming to me from donors and fans and everything of how I'm handling the situation with working from home, what my new daily life looks like, all of those things. I think everybody's kind of curious, what's your daily life look like now? I know that it's changed for all of us, but how are you adapting to being in the office? Your work schedule, how those things have all changed?
Thank you, Casey. As you know, I'm in the office most every day. I'm one of the employees that is cleared to come in every day. So it's easier for me to work from the office than at home with all the kids doing their schoolwork and playing around. So I'm in here, and I spend probably 80% of my time on Zoom right now. This is number 4 for me today, and I have 2 more coming. So, but it's a lot harder, more challenges in trying to manage and run with everybody off-site. I much prefer having the craziness of being on campus and people in and out than kind of the isolation of sitting in an office by myself. So it's different. We're making it, but we're going to start bringing people back on campus here in a couple of weeks, and I am ready for that.
Brad Stark, go ahead.
Michael, you and Kent, has there been any discussion about requests for facilities for any of the venues outside of university events, and how you guys will handle that, even the stadium, the club level, those type of things moving forward into the fall? Or are you just going to address them as they come in, those requests?
Yeah. Right now, everything is closed to outside. It's even closed to us internally. Our athletic facilities will reopen for our use. My expectation is that once everything gets back to normal, our facilities will reopen for external reservations through the normal ways we have operated in the past. But we're not there yet, and I don't anticipate we'll be there at least until September.
Okay, last round here. Any questions for Michael McBroom? I think that does it, Michael. We appreciate you joining us today. Late July, early August is going to be here before we know it. And hopefully our fall sports will be back in conditioning, getting ready for the season to fire up that first week of September. Michael, I know you've got your hands full. You've got a lot of balls that you're juggling right now, but BuffNation certainly appreciates your efforts.
Thanks, everybody, for joining today. It's so good to see you.
All right, our next Coaches Zoom will be next Tuesday. That's May 5th. We're going to talk Lady Buff Golf with Meredith Jameson. Her Lady Buffs, one of the premier Division II women's golf programs in the country. That'll be at 11:30 next Tuesday. Looking forward to seeing everybody. Have a safe and happy weekend, everybody. Go Buffs.
Go Buffs.